Okay, a lot has happened since the last time I saw many of you. I believe it was December 11th, almost 2 months ago. Feels like it was 6 months ago with everything that's gone on that I've been a part of, I guess. Number one, hiring a staff. That was critical. Went really well. I'm very excited about the staff that's joining us here at South Florida. And then, the next thing was getting back and really spending time with our players, meeting the team, getting to know them. That's been great. And then we started winter workouts in January with Coach True, our new strength coach. That's been going very well. Then just having an opportunity to meet with people on campus. It was great. I got a chance to speak to all of the deans from the university. That was a pretty intimidating first speech over there, but they were great and just really good leaders that I think have the right vision for our university. And then, I've had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Corral, our president, on several occasions, and a lot of good things are coming out of those meetings. Had a chance to meet with a lot of our donors at some different events. Today was a great opportunity right in here. Had over 30 of our football alumni that came back to just kind of have our first meet and greet, and it was great to be able to see them. It's hard for me to look at Sam Barrington. I remember recruiting him to Clemson, and that was actually probably one of the first times that I really started looking at South Florida, because we wanted Sam at Clemson, and he told me, no, I'm going to the University of South Florida, and I thought he was crazy. And then I followed him, and it wasn't 2 years later, he was out there on the field when they beat us in Charlotte in the bowl game. And so it's been fun now having the opportunity, just to see how our paths are crossing. And he's done a great job of really getting that former player group back together. And, I've had an opportunity just to meet a lot of people in the community. So after 2 months being here, this is what I've learned and what I've seen. Number one is there's a lot of people around here that love this university. They're passionate about this university. And that's important. You want to be somewhere where they have people that are passionate about the university. The other thing that I've been able to sense from all the different groups that I met with is that there's a true hunger out there when it comes to our football program. Obviously, we're still a relatively new football program, only 23 years, but there's been some, especially early on, a lot of really good momentum. And then, there's been some moments here and there, but I think everybody that I talk to is really hungry for, some sustainable success year after year after year, not just maybe one highlighted year every once in a while. The other thing that I've learned, which has been great, is just the people here are very genuine. I think that, being at Clemson for 12 years, if you were to ask me to describe my experience at Clemson and what makes Clemson so special, I would say it's the people. The people are just really unique, very special, genuine, good-hearted people that truly care about other people. And after being here for about 8 days and going back to Clemson to get ready for the Ohio State game, as soon as I got back, Coach Sweeney came and got me and said, all right, boy, tell me, how'd it go? What do you think? You going to stay here or you going back? And I said, no, I'm going back. I said, the first thing I told him, I said, Coach, the people down there are just like what we have here in Clemson. I said, that's probably what makes me feel so excited, is just very genuine people that truly care about the university, truly care about the student athletes. And I said, that just makes me feel very comfortable. The other thing that I've learned is how special Tampa is. For me, again, I've been down here recruiting, and when you're recruiting, you're kind of in and out. And now to have the opportunity to spend some time downtown, and I got to go to the Lightning game, got to meet Jeff Vinnick, and just, all the people. There's a lot of pride around Tampa, and that's exciting for me, the community. There's obviously Savannah and I were in the parade. That was an incredible experience just to see everybody there. And, I've definitely can feel that there is a passion even in the Tampa Bay area for this college football team to have success, and that they're just waiting to really rally behind it again, much like they did in the beginning years under Coach Levitt. And then the other thing that I've learned as I've had an opportunity to learn more about this university is that, this is a very quickly rising university, and just all the different campuses coming together and the potential. But, that's been one thing that I did not know as much about whenever I took the job, but just learning over the last 2 months, the quality of this education, the quality of this university, and really we're on a fast track going to great places. And then the last thing that I would say that I've learned is our players are hungry. I wasn't really sure what it was going to be like walking in that team room, having a team meeting. Anytime that the coach that recruited you is no longer there, that can be an uneasy experience for a young man. And, this new guy that really they don't know could be difficult. But what I've sensed through my individual meetings, I've had a lot of individual meetings with our players, and what I've sensed from them, and then also in our team meetings, is that they're hungry and that they're wanting a culture. They're wanting some change. They're wanting discipline. They're wanting accountability, because I think they've seen, unfortunately, the last couple of years that they haven't had the success that they want. So the buy-in is extremely strong, and I truly believe that the players are very excited about what's going on. And the last thing I would say, all that being said, I'm more confident now than I was 2 months ago when I took the job. And really, you're just kind of coming off of what you've heard from other people, recommendations about the job and about the people you're working for, And now after being here two months, I'm more confident than ever that this is the right time and the right place for me and for this staff to be here. And, I truly believe, I used to say, at Clemson from about the mid-'80s till Coach Sweeney took over right there, about 2008, 2009, I used to say Clemson was kind of in a hibernation mode for about 20 years. And what I feel like, this program football-wise got off to a really good start, and then it's just been some inconsistent years the past few years. And, I feel like the Bulls kind of waking up and getting ready to start storming full speed ahead. And so I'm just more excited than I was 2 months ago. And I think sometimes some buddies that I've had have taken other jobs, and 2 months later they may not have the same feeling they had at the press conference. And I'm pleased that my confidence in our future success and that this is the right fit for me personally and my family is even higher today than it was 2 months ago. So now the reason that we're here is signing day, and in this signing class, 17 signees, 17 young men and families that decided that they want to be a part of our culture, a part of our program, a part of our new direction. It was different for me, probably a little bit difficult, I guess, for 12 years being at the same school. My typical way to recruit a young man and a family is to start in the 9th and 10th grade and have about a 2-3 year relationship with that young man and that family. And I found myself on a couple occasions this year to literally be on the phone with a young man and try to convince him, his mom, and his granddad to sign 2 days later to a place where they've never visited and to a coach that they've never met in person. And that was definitely a new experience. But what that showed me is the reputation that University of South Florida has, that these young men can see the potential, and that they truly believe and are buying in to what we're talking about and the vision that we've laid out. But there's no doubt that we see a lot of potential in this group. You're not going to hear one press conference today around the country where any coach is going to say, to be honest, we failed today and I apologize, right? That's not going to happen. Everybody's excited about their class. As you get to know me more through my time here, hopefully you'll be able to recognize that I'm try to be pretty straightforward and genuinely tell you what I think. If I don't have anything nice to say, I probably just won't say anything. I'll find a way not to say it. But I truly, and our coaching staff, are very excited about these 17 individuals, some that are already here from the early signing period. But I think it exceeded my expectations as far as the quality of players and the quality of people that we were able to bring in a very short amount of time. I mean, you're talking about hiring coaches and also bringing in, recruits in the same week. And especially in the age of the early signing period where you have a lot of young men all over the country that are signing in December, knowing that we were going to have some scholarships in January and February, I wasn't sure exactly what that pool was going to look like in terms of player ability and also quality and of person. And what I found out that first weekend, we had 7 guys here on that first weekend. And, I called my dad after the first dinner on Friday night and I said, these are the kind of guys that I would want to recruit if we started a year out. This is the kind of group I want to get to. And the fact that they're all here in a short amount of time is really amazing. And so for us, being a great player is just one of about 5 or 6 boxes that need to be checked for us to offer an opportunity to come here. One of my big jobs and our staff's big job is really to create the culture that we want, to have a championship program that can last, not just a championship team for one season, but a championship program that can have high success year after year after year. And I think the most important thing to do when you're trying to create that culture is bring in the right type of young men and the right type of families into your locker room. You recruit your culture. And I think that's a big part. And that was kind of my message to our staff was, making sure that we're not just going off of their highlight tape, but are they a fit? Are they going to be a foundation piece to our program for the next 3, 4, 5 years? Are they going to represent this university, this football program, our coaches, our team, the way that we want them to represent us? And if not, we don't need to sign them, okay? And so I think every single one of these young men that we sign, we put through a pretty thick filter. It was not just finding somebody online and signing them up because we're going late. All right, we do have some other scholarships available, and we strategically are holding some of those scholarships to get through spring ball. I'm coming from a place that has not signed a transfer scholarship player in all 12 years that Coach Sweeney was the head coach. So that's my norm that I'm used to. But I think that each place is a little bit different. Each timing is a little bit different. And I think once we kind of get our program up and running, we may tap into some transfer guys to help us from time to time, but it will not be I don't envision it being a major staple where we're going out and signing 6 or 8 guys every year. But from time to time, if you can help your roster and help your team with the right type of, again, you got to go through that same filter of all those things that you're bringing in. And I think before the popularity of the transfer portal, just my overall opinion, probably 4 or 5 years ago, probably 75% of the people that were available to transfer probably had some issues where they were, some baggage, dealing with a lot of different things. And I think now with the transfer portal being such a visible thing, I think that over 50% of the young men that are in the portal are quality young men that are looking for a better opportunity. And then also being in Tampa, there's so many young men that leave to go off, and then they want to come home for some reason, and so that's an advantage for us. So bottom line, we decided as a staff before we brought in that first group on the efficient visit weekend that we were going to hold a certain number of spots until we get through spring practice. We get a chance to see what our needs are, and if we can maybe help the gap here in the interim with a few of those positions, we will. And the other benefit of that is if you're bringing in a transfer, then typically they may have 1 year. So now instead of, let's just say, for example, instead of signing 18 players in the 21 class, we can go sign 25 players in that 21 class. So you're getting a positive in that you may be able to get some people that can help you next season, fill some holes, but also you have an entire year to recruit to a bigger class rather than just going out and taking a bunch of guys late now, because my overall philosophy is once they sign and they're here, then they're ours. And that's what I'll tell our coaches is don't complain that they're not good enough. Once we start recruiting and bringing them in, hey, they're our players, and it's to graduation do we part. I'm not going to be a head coach that's running guys off the team because they're not good enough. And so I would rather be slow and be right than be fast and be wrong. So, I think 17 is the right number. for us. I feel really good about that. I think y'all will see some. You've already seen a couple that have been announced transfer-wise, maybe from the young men. There'll be more of those to come here over the next couple of months, and that will be added to our team in May. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Do you expect Fortin and some of these guys to compete right away at the quarterback spot? Do you expect, is that wide open as far as you're concerned?
Yes, it is, and it's been explained to everybody. The quarterback spot, obviously, it's a high-profile position, and that's why you're asking about it. But just so you know, my overall message to the team is that every spot is up for grabs. I purposely have not watched one play of any of these players from last season. Now, our position coaches will, because they need to kind of get guys day one in the right positions and slots within the scheme. But me as a head coach, I'm choosing not to watch that because I told the players I want the first day of spring ball to be the first time that I've seen every one of those guys go out there and compete, because it is a new day. It's a new beginning. For some guys, they need a new beginning and a new opportunity. And so that's the way that I'm looking at it. But that's exactly what I told our quarterbacks as we were bringing in. You know, obviously we signed Cade coming in now, and then also Jordan and Catravis, two high school quarterbacks we think are really talented. And we've told everybody that we're going to allow everybody to compete. And, you know, we get 30 or 15 practices, you know, counting the spring game, and then, you know, almost 30 practices in August before the first game. So you're talking about 45 practices. You know, usually it'll start separating itself a little bit. But I think having a environment of competition and the right type of competition is really important. And I think if you don't have that and there's some entitlement, people feel like they're entitled for positions, then you don't have the culture that we want to have.
You want to name a quarterback early, or are you going to let that go?
After the first day of spring ball. No, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know when I'm going to name our starting right tackle either.
But when would you like that?
Yeah.
Ideally, would you like to have the first guy, let's say your
Ideally, the latest that I would like to, in an ideal world, I mean, I haven't seen any of these guys throw live yet. In an ideal world, at least 2 weeks before our opener, I'd like to have a starting quarterback where they can be out there with the first team reps. And if it's earlier than that, then great. And if it is, then we'll make that decision. If it's not, then we'll let it continue to go. But you know, ideally, I'd like to have one, you know, a couple weeks before the first game.
If you get a quarterback, is this one guy thing you wouldn't consider, or you mind like Spur used to do, put people in and out?
Yeah, you're asking some good questions right off the bat. You know, I think it's too early to say because I haven't seen them. I think once I see it, I've been a part of that. I know for the first part of really the national championship season at Clemson 2 years ago, for the first half of that season, we did play two quarterbacks. We played Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence, and had success with that. And then Trevor ended up separating himself enough where he ended up being the guy there. So I've seen it done a lot of different ways. I mean, you know, the ideal scenario is you have one guy that everybody feels great about and everybody knows he's your leader and he's your guy. That's not always the case. I know you can win the other way too. And so I think at the end of the day, it'll just come down to whatever we think gives us the best chance to win, not really what we think gives us the best chance to keep everybody happy. You know, that's not really what we're concerned about. You know, I think when you're dealing with the quarterback position, it's important to be transparent and to be open and honest and have communication. I mean, communication is one of the key founding principles to our program. And so I think that my experience through some of those quarterback competitions and all that can become high profile, as long as everybody's on the same page throughout the entire process, you know, then they work themselves out. But when there's not communication, then that's when maybe you can create a little bit more drama than desired.
You guys kept your back end, especially between the cornerbacks and safeties, together, especially through that early signing period, added to what is arguably the best unit on the team. What was the key to keeping those guys together?
Yeah, well, and I should say this too. You know, whenever I got here, I guess on Tuesday and then had the press conference Wednesday. And then I was told that maybe 11 of our commits were going to be here on Friday. So I'd get a chance to meet them in person for their official visit. And I know early on talking to Michael at the very beginning when I took the job, trying to figure out how are we going to deal with the current commits and, trying to do things the best way there. And then what I found out once I got around them and started watching video, and then I got around them on that official visit weekend, I really liked the guys that were here. So a lot of those guys were a part of that, my first weekend here. And many of them had been here many times more than I had. And but that's a really close group of guys. Those guys, they're not too far. They don't live too far from each other. They train together. And the thing that was really special to me about a lot of the guys that signed in this December class is they wanted to play at USF, right? I mean, that's why they want. And there's something very genuine about that. That got me excited. Whenever I went to Jordan Smith's house in Lake City, I mean, I'm walking in. First of all, his dad, former player here, he's got a USF license tag on the back of his truck. We walk in, and they got stuff all over, bulls, horns, just like that in the living room. And I said, I need to get some of that for my house. I mean, they had it all. And so it was just so awesome to see so many young men that, yes, there was a new coach and all that, and they had to feel comfortable with me. And really, think about it. These guys and their parents allowed them to sign at USF, and I hadn't hired one assistant coach. So they had no idea who their position coaches were going to be, who their coordinators were going to be. And I know Jordan and Levante Camille both kind of decided to wait, which was good, which was fine until today to sign because they wanted to meet the coaches. But the other guys that signed, they weren't worried about it. And they just told me, Coach, no offense, obviously we feel good about you, but we want to be at USF. And we've been coming to games, and we're excited. And now that you're here, we really see even a better vision. So that's probably the biggest thing that stuck out to me. I just think those guys really wanted to play here, and they also wanted to play together.
Jeff, could you speak to the two offensive linemen you signed, and how's your depth at that position shaping up going into spring?
Yeah, well, first of all, in the depth, as far as I know, we have 10 offensive linemen. Our ideal number is typically around 14 to 15, and that's probably a position that we may look to add some experience to the group later this summer. But offensive line is one of those positions that it's probably one of the toughest positions to evaluate as a coach. Like, a lot of people can turn on the tape and see a quarterback, running back, or wide receiver. Savannah's almost to the point where she can pick those out herself. But the offensive line, that's a little bit more difficult. These guys are just kind of growing into their body and trying to figure out the toughness, the technique, all the different things that it takes. And so Coach Mo, Coach Mogridge, you guys are going to get a chance to meet. Man, he is awesome. I'm really excited about him as the OL coach. He's going to do a great job with those guys, very passionate about it, has great relationships with his guys. And, when I was talking to him, I just said, I don't want to reach on any offensive lineman because if they come in and they're not the right fit, it's hard to get them on the field. And now you got guys not good for them, it's not good for us. So I said, let's make sure that we feel very good about the guys that we're going to go after and sign. And, Cesar Reyes right here in this area is somebody that Coach Mo had been recruiting when he was at another school. So he had a relationship, and maybe Cesar had some bigger offers early in the process, and then he kind of got banged up a little bit. And, we feel very fortunate that he was available. And, with Cesar, what I'm excited about, he's got a big frame. He's a physical guy, has unlimited potential as a player. But the thing that stuck out to me is he was one of the guys that told me that, he wants to be, kind of set the trend of the top players staying right here in Tampa. That was important to him. He told me that when he committed. He said, Coach, I know I'm not the first one. He said, but for you, I am the first one, and I'm going to help you keep our guys right here in this area. And so that really kind of spoke to me that he'd have an awareness kind of that at 17, 18 years old. So I'm really excited about him. Uriah Green, young man from Mallard Creek. I'm very familiar with Mallard Creek's program up in Charlotte. We signed multiple guys from that program while I was at Clemson, one of the top programs in North Carolina. He's been coached very well. His dad is actually the offensive line coach. If you did a study on the offensive linemen coming out of Mallard Creek the last 8 or 10 years, You know, they've had a number of top college and NFL offensive linemen that have come out of there, but he's a really athletic guy. He reminds me of a kid I coached last year, Tremaine Ankrum. That was a 3-year starter for us at Clemson. Just very high football IQ, can play multiple positions. And, you know, he was a guy that had some other really good opportunities, but he got excited about the opportunity and what we're going to be doing here in the future. So I feel very confident about those two young men, and I'm glad to get them here this summer and kind of add them to our program.
Holton Willis is a guy that had a prolific wide receiver career over Greenback, but you recruit him as a tight end, and I know he's only 204, probably going to need to bulk up a little bit, but how do you see his development from a wide receiver to a tight end?
Yeah, Holden, I actually put out a tweet this morning. I had to kind of wait till he signed to put it out. But I actually saw him for the first time 2 years ago at our camp at Clemson. He came in, and at that time he was still thinking he was going to be a wide receiver. He was probably about 185 pounds, but had really good length, good route runner, and just he was just a grinder. Just the way he attacked the ball, the way, I mean, we put him through some pretty difficult practices there in our football camp. And he was a guy that could have gone all day long, just kind of had that big smile, energy, all that. And so whenever Coach King, our tight ends coach, you know, I had a lot of things going on, so I kind of let each position coach be the head coach of their position and really, you know, let them be the expert and go through and watch all the guys and then sit down with me and Coach Weiss, our OC, kind of present the guys that he likes, let us watch them as a group, because we were only going to bring in one for the first official visit weekend. You know, I'm not a believer in bringing in multiple players if you're only going to take one. And then you get to the end of the weekend, everybody had a great time, and the grandmother's over there, a big smile on her face, and then you got to tell them right before they leave, sorry, we don't have a spot. You know, that's just not the way that I like to do business. And so, you know, even though we knew we definitely needed to sign one, there were about 3 or 4 that Coach King really liked. And but he had Holden number 1. I said, hold on a second, I know him, I remember him from camp. And you know, what my experience with the tight end position, you see it all over the NFL, you know, a lot of these guys that maybe played receiver and you could see their body type kind of moving that direction, you know, that's when you can get some athletic guys. It's easier with your strength staff and nutrition to put weight on an athletic guy than to take a guy that's already, you know, 260 pounds and make them more athletic, make them a better route runner and separator. That's very difficult. So, you know, you don't want a team full of the guys that maybe need to gain weight. You need a variety. But we just felt like, you know, looking kind of at our roster that, you know, we needed to bring in a guy that was just really athletic, that we could, again, I'm looking through a lens of big picture, long-term program success, not immediate success, right? That's the lens that I'm looking through. You know, if we were just worried about, you know, just having one great season next year and that was our only priority, then you probably don't take a 205-pound tight end, right? But when you're thinking about long-term success, you're planting some seeds and you see some really athleticism. And then more than just that, you see a guy, Greenback, Tennessee. Anybody ever been to Greenback, Tennessee? So funny story on that. Coach King got there a little bit earlier than I did. It's about 4. He was there all day, but I called him about 4:45. I said, I'll be there in about 30 minutes. He said, okay, I'm at the Greenback Diner right here. It's just me. I'm the only one in here. And so finally I get there about 30 minutes later, and he's sitting in his car outside the Greenback Diner. And he rolled the window down. He said, yeah, they closed at 5 o'clock. I said, all right, well, good. So, but, man, he played both ways. He's one of those old school football players that you just can't take off the field. I mean, he's one of the leaders in tackles. I mean, he just kind of he really represents exactly what we want in our players. And then the family that he comes from. I mean, his dad is just lived there his entire life. And a hard worker, just known for the right things in the community, and just a winner, you know. And that's what, in my mind, that's what I'm trying to add is, and we have some of those in this locker room. I have no doubt about that. But the more we can add to the locker room, we're going to wake up, and all of a sudden, you know, we're going to be a lot closer to where we want to be. And so that's probably the things I'm most excited. But it was pretty cool. He had some of the pictures and videos from whenever I worked with him at camp, and I think for him, his comfort level with me from, you know, coaching him and getting to know him at camp, you know, a couple years earlier, made that late transition a little bit easier for him.
Coach, when you look at the 17 signees, what impresses you most about the group?
Yeah, I think I probably hit on it the most. I don't want to just keep beating it, but just being 100% honest. The thing that I'm most impressed with is that there was this number of quality players with a lot of potential who happen to be exactly the right fit for our culture. And I think what I was a little concerned with, because where I was previously, we didn't recruit in January. January was always about the juniors and sophomores. We were done in December. So this is my first experience in a long time of really, and even before the early signing period, we were done recruiting by December. And so this is my first time going into January. So I guess I'd already kind of stayed up late at night thinking, like, am I going to have to potentially settle a little bit on my requirements and kind of some of those boxes that need to be checked to bring in the right type of young men into our family. That was bothering me a little bit late at night. And then whenever I met these guys and met their families, what I said earlier, I said, this is exactly the kind of group that I hope when we have a year long to recruit a class, I hope that we get to the point where we have these type of young men from a character, integrity, academics, pride in who they are, pride in their community, pride in their family. That's probably the biggest thing that stood out big picture-wise. And then I guess if you're asking like specifically within football and that type of thought, I would say the length that we were able to get in some of these guys. I mean, Sincere Brown, he's a long guy. And again, he's thin. He's going to have to put on some weight. But, all of a sudden, somebody's going to come out 2 years from now and go, where in the world did they find that guy, right? And just long arms, same thing. Travis Marsh, big, long arms, a lot of growth potential, with a lot of these guys. And so I think the length and athleticism of this group, Coach True, and we're getting a new nutritionist. I think it's going to be here Monday, so we'll have plenty of work for them to do when our guys get here this summer. But, I would rather have them that way than to have some of the bigger guys that maybe you have to take weight off of to try to get them to move a little bit better. So that's probably, physically, that's probably the thing that most impressed me with this group.
Coach, how hard was it to put that filter up, especially when you start recruiting maybe later than you would want to?
Yeah, well, I think it was, again, it just kind of goes back to my thought of thinking long-term, rather than short-term. And, and plus, I didn't, with some of the other opportunities maybe that I had to leave Clemson in the past, one of my kind of thoughts was, I don't want to, it's not just me and my wife and my daughter that are moving down. And obviously I knew as long as I had my daughter with us, my mom and dad were coming. All right, but it's not just the 5 of us, but there's going to be a lot of other families whenever I take a head coaching job that are going to be moving to that area. And so in my mind, I never wanted to take a job that maybe was like, let's go there and win a year or two, and then I can really get the job that I want. And with the success that we were having at Clemson, I felt confident that if I just stayed patient, Trevor was only a sophomore going into last year. If I just stayed patient, I could wait for the job that I really want. And so for me, that's why I chose to come here. And that's why I'm thinking big picture and really building a program. I don't want to say successful program because this program has had moments of success, but building a program that has consistent success in a lot of different areas. And so with all that being said, I wasn't really willing to give in those areas because, if I'm going to be in that team meeting room like I've been the last couple of weeks, preaching accountability and the importance that what you do in the classroom is going to have a direct influence on your playing time and what you're doing on the football field, it's hard to kind of preach that message and then maybe bring young men in as part of my first class that maybe didn't fit that thought.
Coach, 10 of the 17 signings are from Florida. I know you talked about this in your introductory press conference, but how critical is it to keep these guys in the Sunshine State?
Yeah, there's no question. And I would say another positive thing that I learned, maybe I wasn't great with geography in high school, I don't know, but it was one thing to come down here and recruit Tampa, coming from Clemson or coming from somewhere else. But this was the first time that I was like leaving my house in Tampa to go recruit. And we drove to Lake City and got there in 2 hours and 35 minutes. And I said, we're this close to Lake City. And then, the next morning we got up and we started driving south. And I said, man, we're 3.5 hours from Miami. And then it kind of dawned on me. I was like, we've got like the best location. Like to get to North Florida and South Florida, I mean, it's no longer than a 3.5 hour drive at most to get to both these places. And then you think about where some of the other schools are located, maybe all the way south, you got a long drive, all the way north with a long drive. To me, that got me really excited to think about the potential that is here. You know, because it's usually you think as a recruiter, you think about a 4-hour radius. Like that, a 4-hour radius, a mom can get in the car and dad get in the car in the morning, drive to see their son play on a Saturday, and then drive home. You know, once you start getting outside of that, then it's, you know, hotel rooms and flights and all those type of things. So to think about that radius, that includes a lot of the part of Florida. And then, you know, we spent a lot of time here in the Bay Area, and that was one thing that was really important. You know, we actually are not breaking up our coaches into recruiting areas until probably here over the next couple weeks. With everything going so fast, I didn't want to just, you know, tell a coach, hey, this is going to be your recruiter, and then, you know, have time to slow down and figure out maybe a different plan. So we really just, we took the entire Bay Area and we put all 10 coaches in this area to really go through every school, just make an introduction, invite the coaches to come over. We got a coaches clinic coming up here in a couple weeks. And probably I went to maybe 16 schools in this area. I think in 16 schools I met 9 head coaches that are all USF graduates. And they're all wanting to help and wanting to see their kids come to University of South Florida. And like, I haven't been around that, and that just like amazed me. I mean, I'm like looking around for it's like hidden cameras. Like, is it really like this easy? I mean, that's what it feels like going in these high schools. And again, I know I'm real popular. I was telling Michael Kelly earlier today, I said, this would be a great job if we never had to play any games. I just go around and do all this stuff, shake everybody's hands. And you can sign me up for a lifetime contract, all right? And so I realize that there's a honeymoon phase, maybe, if you will, but also I realize what's genuine and what's not. And there is a genuine, even among the high school coaches in this area, there's a genuine hunger in this program doing well and being successful, so that their kids don't have to go out of state or don't have to go far away. So they, as a high school coach, can come over a 15-minute ride and watch their players play on a Saturday. And so that got me really excited. And so there's no doubt that there's a lot of talent. Obviously, we're able to, and our philosophy will be, you know, number one, starting in kind of this Bay Area, if we kind of increase it out about an hour each direction, you know, my plan is to have all 10 coaches, you know, have about 8 or 9 schools within this radius. And then outside of that, the next priority is the state of Florida. You know, and I think if we can just focus on those two, you know, we'll have a chance to have a very successful program if we can do a good job in that area. And then outside of that, some of us do have contacts. Obviously, I've been in South Carolina for 20 years. You know, my dad has a lot of relationships there. And you look at a guy like Joey King, one of the, you know, most successful coaches in the history of Georgia football. He's got a lot of connections there. You think about Pat White being from Alabama. He's got a lot of connections there. So out of state, you know, it'll be one of those things where we just kind of spot recruit. And if there's a certain type of young man that's a good fit that would like to come down and visit, but we won't spend the majority of our time out of Florida because we have so many guys, you know, right here in our own backyard.
Jeff, you're bringing in 3 quarterbacks. Jordan McLeod is back. Do you know right now what your plan is for Jaquez, who kind of double trained at 2
Yeah.
positions?
So I met with Jaquez, and he told me, I let him kind of start it off. He said that he had a desire to go to receiver, and he felt like he could really help us at receiver, and I supported that. You know, I've had, you know, there may be some of that that goes on. I'm not a head coach that comes in and tells guys you're switching positions. I've never been that way. If you got to force a guy to play a position, he's not going to be committed enough to be successful for you. And but this is the time, if there is a time for guys to kind of move around. There may be some other guys that are kind of thinking about moving to some different positions. But with a brand new staff, everybody's about to go in. The players are and start at the exact same spot, learning the offense, learning the defense. So this is the time. You know, again, I haven't seen any of our players, but I've heard Jaquez, very athletic young man, and got really good size. And so he's going to start off at receiver and kind of go full speed ahead there.
Jeff, just compared to the early signing day class where it was pretty split on offense and defense, this one seemed like it was emphasized offensively, 6 offense, 2 defense. Was that by design, or is it just kind of happened?
Yeah, pretty much. I think, you know, we have a grid that we work off of that's basically scholarship numbers. So the guys that are currently on the team now, how many running backs do we have, how many quarterbacks do we have, and we kind of have target numbers for those. So really, I think what you're seeing, some of that is off the current roster that we have right now and where we're targeted. Then also we have some thoughts of maybe what positions we feel like we need to bring a little bit more experience in. And so some of that, may be on the defensive side of the ball at a few positions. And I think probably whenever we get started with fall camp, it'll probably be evened up a little bit more.